Hello, hello. Welcome back to Brenda's Books. And happy St. Patrick's Day to you. This is part 4 of Dad, Thad, and My Skateboard. Here we go. I watched the orange sun peek over the horizon and slowly bring light to the lake's surface. The still water glistened in the dim light. I sat next to my skateboard at the top of the walking path that led down to the shore, enjoying the view and silence of the early morning. Eventually, the sun shone bright enough that I could see the path clearly, so I hopped to my feet and began skateboarding down the slope toward the lake. "Stacy, is that you?" I braked hard and stopped, turning around to face the familiar voice. There stood Bryce and Conner, in a t-shirt and shorts with packs on their backs. "Oh, hey guys, what are you doing here?" "We're going rock climbing before it gets too hot," said Bryce. "Usually we drive the boat until we reach our favorite spot." "Awesome! Can I come with you?" "Sure," Bryce said. "We even have an extra harness." He patted his backpack behind him. "Have you ever rock climbed before?" asked Conner. "Only once on real rocks," I said. "What do you mean by real rocks?" Conner asked. "You know, real mountains instead of indoor climbing walls." "No way, are you serious?" Bryce and Conner said in unison. I laughed at that. "Oh, then you gotta come," said Bryce. "Let's go." I skateboarded down the path, and the two boys jogged behind me. "Are Krissy and Thad coming?" I asked, as we jumped into Conner's speedboat. "Krissy's probably sleeping, and Thad's at practice. He's in the Junior Pro League, remember?" said Bryce. "Yeah, there's no way he'd get as good as he is just by messing around with us," Conner said with a laugh, then flipped on the ignition. "They practice this early?" I said. Bryce nodded. "Every day." I sat at the top of the bow and spread my arms out to either side of me. "Do you guys ever watch him?" Bryce came to sit next to me. "Yeah, we have a couple of times, but they usually practice the same stunt over and over. It's not that interesting after a while." "But we could learn a lot by watching them," I noted. "Yeah, or we could have our own fun and climb some cliffs," said Conner, as he slowly steered the boat out into open water. The lake was so still, it looked like our boat's wake was the first to ever disrupt its peace. The cool morning breeze whipped across my face. I closed my eyes and smiled. It felt so good. Finally, we stopped in a little cove, which the boys said was their favorite cliffside. I glanced up at the solid mountain, standing tall and majestic, with the sun beaming down on its ebony rocks. Its large shadow jutted out across the lake. A bubbling thrill sprinkled through my chest. I've been wanting to do this forever. "Wow, this place is gorgeous," I cried. "Yep, sure is," Bryce and Conner said in unison. I laughed. "Okay, that's the second time you guys have done that today." Bryce laughed too. "People think we're twins sometimes." "I can see why. You look alike too." The three of us hopped out of the boat, and Conner dumped an anchor in the water so it would stay put. "Which one of us is better looking?" Conner asked me, as he made his way out of the water. "I have no idea," I said truthfully. Conner groaned and rolled his head. "That's what everybody says." I shrugged. "Sorry." "Come on, Stacy," said Bryce. "I'll belay you first." I turned to Bryce, who was already well adjusted into his harness. He handed me another one, and I stepped in and tightened it until it was snug. "This is slightly freaky," I admitted. "I got you," said Bryce with a smile. "Conner, do you want to set up a top rope?" "Sure." Conner, who was already in his own harness, started to climb the mountain, placing quick draws into the rocks and clipping his rope to them with a carabiner. I watched in awe at his speed and skill. "Stop being an idiot, Conner, and slow down," Bryce shouted. "I'm fine," Conner shouted back. "Show off," Bryce mumbled under his breath. Once Conner reached the top, he called out, "All set!" Bryce hooked our harnesses to the rope and said, "You're up." I glanced up at the tall cliff. "I got you," Bryce said again. I took a deep breath, swallowed my nervousness, and began climbing. Once I got a little higher, I braced myself for the nasty remarks to start, the way they always had on the rare occasion that I convinced Jace and his friends to go to a climbing wall. But instead, all Bryce said was, "Nice job, Stacy. You've got good instincts." I sighed in relief. It was nice to be around boys who were, I didn't even know the right word for it. It also felt strange. Almost like I didn't believe they would stay this way. But I liked it, and I better enjoy it while it lasts, because at the end of the summer, I would have to go back. I mean, I wanted to go back. Jace was a good guy, wasn't he? I mean, of course he was. He just... Suddenly, my foot slipped. Immediately, I felt my rope tighten, and I hung safely in the air. I got you, Bryce called to me. Thanks, I called back. Eventually, I found my footing again. This time, I left my thoughts behind, so I could concentrate on climbing. And soon enough, I made it to the top, where Connor stood waiting for me. Hey, Bryce, I'll come down in a sec so we can switch places, Connor called down the mountain. Okay, Bryce called back. Connor turned to me with a big smile. So, Stacy, I hear you have a boyfriend. I put my hands on my hips. Where did you hear that? Thad texted me last night. Really? What did he say? Connor shrugged. He said you had a boyfriend. I flashed a smile. What else did he say? That's about it. Dudes don't need to share a lot to understand each other. He cracked open his water bottle and took a swig. I laughed once. Yeah, I know. But that might just be because I'm no good at conversation. I heard he texted Krissy all night long. How do you know that? I asked. Connor shrugged again. Krissy texted me. He took another swig of water, then burst out laughing. What? Your face right now. It's classic, Connor said, his shoulders still shaking. Well, I don't really like the fact that everyone was talking about me last night. Connor started to say, but he was distracted by the shaking rope that he had tied to a tree. Dude, Bryce, you're coming up without a belay? He said loudly. When there was no answer, Connor shook his head and turned to me again. We didn't say anything bad. You know you're our friend now, right? I was a bit taken aback by this. Yeah, well, thanks. Connor sat in the dirt and leaned back on his hands. I know you probably miss your friends back home, but we're not so bad, are we? No, you guys are great, I agreed, sitting across from him. But you definitely are different. Connor chuckled. How so? Well, when I was climbing... Connor stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. What? I shook my head. Never mind. Then I saw a head pop over the edge of the cliff. It looked shaggier than Bryce's, but it had to be Bryce because he was the only other person with us. Then he hoisted himself over the edge and got to his feet. He was wearing a dripping wetsuit. My heart leaped to my throat. It definitely wasn't Bryce. Thad, my man! Connor cried. So that was you climbing up. How did you get here? Coach dropped me off. Practice ended early. Dude, I have to tell you what happened last... Then he stopped short, as he spotted me for the first time. Stacy, I didn't know you were here. Here I am, I said with a tight smile. Thad laughed a little nervously. I see that. How are you? I'm great, I said. I'm finally climbing real rocks. Thad smiled wide. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that you guys, did you guys plan to meet up? He asked, glancing back and forth between Connor and me. Connor gave Thad a disparaging look, but I had no idea what it really meant. Then he got to his feet and brushed off his hands, and I followed suit. So how was practice? I asked Thad. Oh, it was good. Yep, real good. He nodded and pursed his lips like he didn't know what else to say. Can I come watch you? You know, at your next practice. Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, wow, I've never what? Thad batted a hand. Nothing. What Thad means is, Connor cut in, smiling over at us, he's never had a girl ever do that before. Seriously? I said, furrowing my brow. Thad shrugged, then gave Connor a fleeting glower. Hey, I found a swim team you could join. What do you mean you found me a swim team? Exactly that. There's a team with a couple spots open if you want to try out again. Krissy's on the team. It could be fun. He glanced out at the lake, then back to me again. I couldn't quite read his expression, but he looked a little sad, yet hopeful at the same time. And, he said with a bright smile, they practice at night. So that means I can come watch you, too. Ah, I see, I said slowly. Watching me suck at wakeboarding just isn't enough for you. You have to see me screw up something else? I doubt you suck at swimming, Thad said. Oh, so you do admit that I suck at wakeboarding. Gee, thanks. Thad rolled his eyes. That's not what I laughed out loud. I'm just messing with you. I know that's not what you meant. Thad chuckled at that. Good. I hate girls who fish for compliments. I raised my eyebrows. Oh, good to know. Then Connor cleared his throat. Can we go now? Especially since you guys have totally forgotten that I'm here? Thad opened his hands in confusion. What do you mean? Connor rolled his eyes. Coming down, Bryce. One by one, we climbed down the large rock face. Once we reached the bottom, Thad peeled out of his wetsuit down to his regular swim trunks. I gawked once again at how tan and toned he was. Then the boys took me to several more beautiful spots around the lake, where we climbed up and down the massive rock mountains. We climbed for hours. I was surprised how much I enjoyed the boys' bantering. Sometimes I would join in, which seemed to delight all three of them. Finally, when the sun was blazing hot, we got back in the boat and drove to shore. "No wakeboarding today?" I asked. "Oh no, we're definitely wakeboarding," answered Thad. "We're just going to pick up Krissy first." "Oh, good!" I cried. "I can't wait to ask her about the swim team." Thad flashed a grin. "What?" "Nothing," he said, but his eyes were gleaming. "I'm just glad you're trying it again." "Why?" "I don't know," Thad said with a shrug. "Don't you like doing things you like?" "Well, yeah, but I wasn't sure how to explain to him my qualms about it, so I changed what I was going to say and said, 'Just because I said I was going to watch you wakeboard, you don't have to feel obligated to come watch me swim.'" Thad shook his head. "I don't." Just then we reached the docks, where Krissy stood in the same navy racing suit as yesterday. We all greeted her as she climbed in the boat. She looked like she wanted to sit in the bow with Thad and me, but decided against it. Then I remembered my promise to myself yesterday. "Hey, Krissy, do you want to come sit up here?" Krissy gave Thad a look. It seemed as if she were asking his permission or something. Thad motioned her up with his hand. "Well then, I guess I'll just chum here in the back," said Bryce. He smiled at Thad like they were sharing some inside joke. Thad laughed, then quickly cleared his throat and lay down on the leather seat across from Krissy and me. It was all I could do to not just stare at him. "So you're on a swim team?" I asked Krissy, as Conner steered us away from shore. Krissy looked surprised at my question. "Yeah, I am." "I used to swim," I said. "What's your best stroke?" "The butterfly." My eyebrows shot up. "Really? That's awesome!" Krissy looked surprised again, but pleased. "What's your best stroke?" she asked. I thought about that for a second, then shrugged. "Probably freestyle." I expected her to say something like, "Well, duh, everybody can do that." But instead she smiled and nodded. "Nice. What's your best time with the 50-meter race?" "I think 26.1. Krissy's eyes bulged. "No way! I don't think anyone in my region can swim that fast." I gave her a small smile. "Thanks." "Did you bring your suit today?" Krissy asked me. "Yeah, I'm wearing it. It's a racing suit just like yours." I lifted my purple tank top a bit so she could see my dark green suit underneath. I don't know how long Krissy and I talked about swimming, but it was quite a while. Just then Thad cried out, "Oh!" I followed his line of sight. Apparently, Bryce had a pretty spectacular crash in the water. When had he started wakeboarding? "I'm next," Thad called, jumping from his seat. He walked to the back of the boat, winking at me when he passed. Krissy elbowed me in the ribs. "It's a good thing his back is turned, otherwise he'd see that major blush on your face," she said in a low voice. I thought I saw Thad give me a fleeting glance, but I couldn't be sure. I gave Krissy a disapproving look, to which she just grinned. As soon as Thad got up on the wakeboard, my eyes were fixated on him. "So why did you two break up?" I asked Krissy. "He told you we were together?" she said with a start. I shrugged. "Yeah? I kind of figured that was the case anyway." Krissy kept her eyes on Thad when she spoke. "It was because of me." "What do you mean?" "Well, first of all, I never made it to any of his practices." She turned to me quickly. "But they're so early." "Well, you made it to his actual competitions, right?" I immediately regretted asking that question, in case she hadn't. "Well, sure, when I could, but sometimes they were pretty far away, and I don't always have a car to drive because my mom—" She trailed off and shook her head. "The main reason was because I was too controlling." "Controlling how?" "I'm pretty sure you can guess how. He's perfect, and he's obviously gorgeous, and good at everything, and every girl is in love with him, and he always has to be so nice to everybody. I hated that." "You hated that he was nice to everyone?" "Well, no, I liked it, but I'm a jealous person, I guess. I just wanted him to only pay attention to me, you know?" "Was he flirting with other people?" "No, he was just nice." "Well, what's wrong with that?" "Nothing," Krissy said, sounding a little annoyed now. "I told you it was because of me. Because of my mom, I have issues." Krissy rolled her eyes. "You could say that." "It's okay," I said in a rush, hoping I hadn't offended her. "I have issues with my dad." "Like what?" she asked. I planned on just telling her something super generic, but I surprised myself when I said, "My dad was always the one who came to my swim meets, because my mom was always working. Sometimes the meets were far away, and we would go on road trips together and have the most amazing time. He's the one who helped me prepare mentally for all my races. He's the only person who I could say really gets me, you know? I could talk to him about anything, even boys. He even helped me understand them a little bit better. Wow. Can I talk to your dad? Krissy interjected. Then she smiled at me, and I knew that meant she was still listening. But then he and my mom said they were going to split up, and I don't even really know why. He told me he was moving to Nevada with a new job. I begged him to just find a job close by so that we could still go on our road trips, but he didn't. Instead, he got a job 1,000 miles away. And just like that, he was gone from my life. No explanation, no apology. Why would he do that? My eyes began to burn with tears, but I swallowed them back. Silence stretched for a long moment before Krissy finally said, "Why don't you ask him?" I clenched my teeth until I successfully no longer felt tears rushing behind my eyes. "Because I'm still mad." Krissy nodded slowly. "I totally get it." Then I groaned. "I'm sorry. I don't know why I just spilled all of that to you." Krissy shrugged. "It's all good. You're not going to tell Thad, are you?" Krissy laughed lightly. "I think you should tell him. He's really sweet." I already knew that, but my heart still got a little jumpy and a little heavy at the same time. "Do you want to get back together with him?" I asked. "Oh no," Krissy said right away. "That ship has sailed. I still get jealous sometimes, but that's just because I have, well, you know, issues. But I'm working on it." She flipped her ponytail behind her back. "I definitely just want friends right now." "Friends are good," I said, glancing out at Thad. He was doing his insane 360s again. "I hear you have a boyfriend back home," Krissy said. I shrugged. "Yeah, but Jace and his friends are a lot different than you guys." "What do you mean?" "Well, for instance, while we were rock climbing, all the guys were making fun of each other, right? But if that were Jace and his friends, they would have been really gross. And sometimes it makes me feel gross. And sometimes I really hate it." "And you're dating the guy?" Krissy said in disbelief. "Well, sometimes he's nice," I backpedaled. "And sometimes he apologizes, which is more than I can say for my dad." "Yeah, but is your dad gross to you?" "No." "Did you ever tell your mom about it?" Krissy asked. I shook my head. "My mom's always too busy." "Who's too busy?" I looked over at Thad, who was now standing next to us, dripping from head to toe. He wiped his face with a towel. "Hey, nice run!" I cried. His mouth split into a broad grin. "You weren't even watching." I'm sorry. Krissy and I were..." Thad laughed. "No need to be sorry, I don't feel bad. Especially if you really are coming to watch me tomorrow morning." Krissy turned a sharp head to look at me. "You're seriously going to get up that early?" she exclaimed. I shrugged. I like watching people do amazing things. From the corner of my eye, I saw Thad's lips curl up. Krissy rolled her eyes. "Well, I guess this is true love in the making." I cocked my head at her in disappointment. "Stacy has a boyfriend, remember?" said Thad. "Yeah, and he sounds like a real winner," Krissy said sarcastically. "Hey!" I cried. Krissy shrugged. "I say it how it is, girl." Thad had his back turned to us, looking out at the lake with his hands on his hips. Then he turned around. "Hey, Stacy, I'll strike a deal with you." For whatever reason, my heart jolted and raced 1,000,000 miles an hour. "What's that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Thad sat down on the leather seat across from us. "For every practice of mine you come to, I'll come to 2 of yours." "Why 2? Thad shrugged. "It'll be easier for me to come to yours because they're at 7 or 8 at night." He looked at Krissy for confirmation, to which she nodded. "I don't even know if I'm going to make the team," I noted. "You'll make it," Thad said with a confident smile. Stupidly, I blushed at that. Thad's smile brightened, but he said nothing. I held my hand out to him. "It's a deal." Thad shook my hand firmly, his smile unmistakably wide. Krissy rolled her eyes and looked out at the lake. "True love," she said in a mocking whisper. And that concludes part 4. I hope you join me next time for part 5. I hope you have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day and a fantastic week. Until next time, take care.